Hey YouTube. Today I want to start a little series about NixOS. The background is I get a new computer within the next days and I want to prepare a little bit of configuration. I want to take the chance to build my multi-system configuration from the ground up again because I have multiple configurations in one config repository, and there's a lot of legacy structure, especially from my old company. So there are clients from production and so on. And I want to clean everything up and I want to restructure all the things a little bit. So in this little video series, I will show you how I will go about a NixOS installation and how to configure my personal computer and also my servers with Nix Flake. And for everyone who doesn't know NixOS, NixOS is a Linux distribution. And the main difference to other distributions is that it's completely declarative. That means instead of having a package manager like in Ubuntu, where you install package by package, you have a programming language where you can declare any part that shall be installed to the system. So with this configuration, you can decide about software, you can set up users, you can set up secrets, and you can basically build the whole system from a configuration file. And the other thing really about NixOS is that you cannot really break anything because NixOS works with so-called generations. So each time you rebuild your system, a new generation is built up and you can always switch generations. So when you build something new for your computer, you configure something and it doesn't work out for you, you can just easily switch back to the old configuration. I use NixOS on all my systems. I know when I make tutorials on this channel, I always use Ubuntu because that's very easy and people find help very easily. But just from my point of view and how I like to work, I find NixOS really is the best thing to have as much control as possible and to really have no work setting up a new system. So for example, when I have a configured server with some services, I can just take the config file and within minutes and just with a couple of commands, I can just spin up a new server. And that's really the strength of NixOS. What's also very nice about it is that you can have multiple versions of multiple packages. So you don't have problems with dependencies really. If two packages need the same dependency, but in different versions, that's no problem on NixOS because everything is separated. So enough talking. I will show you how I do this on a virtual machine, and this is pretty much unscripted, so it might be a little bit rough, but we will see how this turns out. So we will just start with the installation, and I already have booted my virtual machine here and have my installation dialog here. So I won't do too much really on modifying the installation here. I would just do a standard installation from the ISO, and the rest we will do with the configuration file. So I will just set up my user here, and we won't need a desktop because we will install something else. And of course I want to allow unfree software. And for now I will just say erase disk. We don't need swap here. Next. And now we can install. So I will just log into my virtual machine. I will just do some quick modifications to the system configuration on my virtual VM here. So the first thing is I have just commented out services OpenSSH.enable equals true. This will enable the SSH server so we can remote login. And then I added two lines for the Nix settings. First of all, I added the experimental features, which enable Nix command and the Flake. And what I also would like to add is the trusted users, which is root and which is my main user here. The reason for adding the trusted users is when I have my main user added here, I can just easily build the system configuration on my laptop here, and I can just push it over to the virtual machine. So just save this one. And now I can just rebuild the system. And for the SSH connection, I would like to just copy over one of my keys to the virtual machine so I don't have to enter a password for the SSH connection all the time. So it would just prompt me for a password. And now I added my key. And now I can just add this one down here. And when I enter SSH and the host name, it logs me in directly without password prompt. Okay, so far so good. Now we can start working on our system configuration. So I will head to my projects folder and create a new folder for my configuration here and just open this one in my editor. And for my configuration, I have prepared a template. I will post a link to the download. On a NixOS system, this can be done with a single command. And this is basically Nix Flake init and then -t for template. And then we give it the location of the Git repository. And in the end, we just reference the template we want, because a Flake template can have multiple templates in it. So we take the one that is called NixOS standard. And now we have a basic structure here. So this is our flake.nix file, and I made some comments up here. So if there's anything, any questions and so on, just DM me on X or Twitter or how you want to call it. And feel free to comment on this YouTube video or on the following ones if you have any questions. The best way to learn about NixOS is really to read configurations and to have a look how other people handle problems. So I have linked 2 repos of a GitHub user named Mysterio77, and I learned a lot from his actual configuration files. And my own starter template here is very much inspired by the one he did. Please check it out. You can learn from his configurations. So just to give you an overview, in the Flake, we have different inputs. We have the home manager because we want to manage our user space with home manager. And here we have the Nix packages URL, and I use NixOS unstable because I want to have the latest and greatest packages. And in addition, I also have the stable branch here because sometimes when you are on the unstable branch, it is possible that a package doesn't build or a package is broken. And then I can just easily change my configuration to use the package from the stable branch. And over here, most of the code we will just ignore for now. The most important parts are here. Here we have our NixOS configurations. So per host, we have a configuration which starts with the host name. And here we just import the modules really that are down here. This would be the starting point for the import. And the same goes for the home configuration. Basically, we could just have a single configuration.nix in here or anywhere and just import it. But I like to structure my configuration a little bit because when you want to manage multiple systems, it's much less work when you make a good structure so you can share different resources. For example, you can share user configurations, service configurations between machines and whole systems. And that makes NixOS very powerful and very efficient. So what I would like to start with is the folders here. So I will just name your host to the host name I will actually use. And the same goes for the user. And here I also change the host. And now we can just do a project-wide search and replace. So we just make it your name. And we change all of them. And the same we do with your host. And change all of them. And now save all of our files. And what I would like to do now is to get the configuration.nix and the hardware configuration from the virtual machine. So I will just move into the machine and just copy the folder here. And I want to quickly change the owner of the folder because this is still the root user. So with the scp command, we can just get our Nix files here and download it to our host folder. And as you can see, these ones have been added here. And now we can start editing our configuration a little bit. So for example, we can start putting in some system packages we need. I will just put in NeoVim and Git for the start. And now I will try to push this local configuration to the virtual machine. So I use the NixOS rebuild switch command and I tell it that it's a flake. And moreover, I will, okay, this one is wrong here. This needs to be the host name, of course. So we reference this entry point, the configuration for M3 Kratos. And we tell it that we want to execute the command on the target host. And of course, this is a sudo command on the target host. So we flag it with use remote sudo. And now we execute it. And let's see, we get a little error here. Oh yeah, here we have the same thing, same error. So try again. Oh yeah, and here we have double definition really, because we had these ones defined on our virtual machine and we don't really need them. So as you can see, we have them down here and of course we need to add our trusted user here again. So we save this one and now this error should go away. And now you can see the system is starting to build. And now everything is done. So we will just have a look. So log in over SSH and we just see if NeoVim is available, that's available. And the git command is also available. So that's working. And just for now to get this to a concluding state, I will just make some small changes here. So I will just make some changes to the OpenSSH service because I don't want to permit root login. And I also want to allow SFTP. And I would just go through this a little bit. One thing that I forgot here is if we log in back here, you can see here we are at host NixOS. And that's because I forgot to change the host name in my template here. So I just name this one to the correct one here. This we can also enable. And in order to have a graphical session next time, I will just enable Hyperland as a window manager. And now we rebuild the system once more. Oh yeah, there is. So the wireless here conflicts with network manager because when I have network manager enabled, this will also handle the wireless. So we try again. And now everything is installed. And now we will have a look if Hyperland starts. And here we have a Hyperland crash report that's probably due to GPU issues. So I will just check the error report here. And here we have the problem. It says we need to set the WLR renderer allows software variable. So what we can do is we can just change the hyperlink config. And here we just say end and WLR renderer allow software and save this one. And now we try again. And you can see Hyperland is up and running now. So today we have made a basic VM installation. We are able to change our configuration locally and push it to the remote machine. Yeah, and next time we will get more into detail. So until next time, have fun. Bye.